Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome to this closing press conference for the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. To brief us on the outcomes, we have with us United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed and Spain's Minister of Economy, Carlos Cuerpo. They will each make brief remarks and then take your questions. With that, right over to you, Deputy Secretary General.
Me? Okay. Good afternoon, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. Over the last 4 days, we've had 10,000 people, including over 50 heads of government and state, leaders of international financial institutions and businesses. They've all rushed through these corridors, pausing only occasionally for a cold drink in pursuit of solutions to finance sustainable development. Through our formal sessions, 6 multi-stakeholder roundtables, 400 side meetings and special sessions, and countless bilateral discussions, we've been able to grapple with the challenge of how to close a widening SDG financing gap in a moment of heightened global tension and uncertainty. Now for us is a moment to take stock of what we've achieved. We've agreed on an outcome document, the Compromiso de Sevilla, that upholds the commitments made in Addis Ababa 10 years ago, but it also seeks to rekindle the sense of hope that has been embodied in the Sustainable Development Goals. The outcome document contains 3 major areas of action. First, an investment push to close the financing gap. Second, a serious and a long overdue attempt to confront the debt crisis. And third, the elevation of developing countries across the international financial architecture. In addition to the outcome document, the conference has witnessed the unveiling of more than 100 initiatives to turn the outcome document into action through the Sevilla Platform for Action. From a global hub for debt swaps to a debt pause alliance, a new tool for multilateral development banks to manage currency risks, and the introduction of the world's first solidarity levy on premium class flights and private jets, which would generate new resources for sustainable development, including climate action, not to the detriment of the commitments of the wider funding needed, but to see innovation come in. This platform has sparked new partnerships, innovative solutions that will deliver real change in people's lives. And in that spirit, I'm delighted to report today that the Spanish government would support the Secretary General in consultation with member states and stakeholders to operationalize the Seville Forum on Debt. This commitment, which was supported by member states in the outcome document, will help countries to learn from one another and coordinate their approaches in debt management and restructuring. As I think back over the last 4 days, I've been struck by 3 aspects about this conference. First is a remarkable sense of resolve that is on display. Second, the conference has been deeply practical. And third, everyone is focused on implementation. Taken together, resolve, practicality, implementation, this provides the basis for rebuilding trust and solidarity. This trust needs to be earned. And on that note, I'd like to acknowledge the frustrations that have been expressed by civil society who have contributed greatly to this conference, but have not had the degree of access that they had expected. We hear you, and we endeavour to work with our member states to see the space expanded. The journey ahead will not be easy. The global challenges we face will not be overcome overnight. But I leave Sevilla confident that we can walk that path together with clarity, with courage and commitment. But let me conclude in expressing my deep gratitude to the people and the government of Spain, who have proven not only to be wonderful hosts, but have demonstrated outstanding leadership on sustainable finance for the SDGs and beyond. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General, dear Amina. Allow me to say a few words in Spanish first. So I can give you 10 seconds to get your translator.
Okay, done. Here.
Plug it in.
Oops, there's go. That would help, right? Okay.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I would like first of all to express words of thanks. Thanks to the United Nations, of course, for allowing us to host this conference in Spain, here in Seville. But also I would like to express my thanks to all of those who have made this conference possible. And this includes the state security services, and this also includes the journalists who have been patiently waiting over the last 4 days. And I'd like to thank all of the organization, not just the United Nations, but also the local organization of the conference, and this includes the many volunteers. I would particularly like to applaud the volunteers on behalf of everybody. For Spain, as a host, we see Seville as a great opportunity for us to be able to decisively, openly show our support for multilateralism, but also our opportunity for us to give decisive momentum to action for financing for development. Our ambition has always been for Seville to be a turning point, for there to be a clear roadmap, and as Amina just said, for it to be clearly practical and implementable in terms of how that financing can come about. And I think we have achieved that. We have made Seville a real turning point on this such an important agenda. Over the last few days, various factors have led me to feel optimism. First of all, the change in the narrative that we are seeing, with everybody, all stakeholders, acknowledging the urgent need for action to be taken now. Because, as we know, the time is now, so that we can make this change and have the impact that we want it to have, that we want Seville to be this turning point. And secondly, as the DSG just said, we are seeing this Seville commitment. The document itself gives us not just a general ambitious overview of what we want to achieve in the future, but also specific concrete measures. And there are mechanisms that can allow us to see how that financing will be channeled and how we can bridge the financing gap, alleviate the debt burden, and allow countries who most need it to access financing. And this also includes enhancing transparency and accountability. And thirdly, above and beyond the narrative and the Seville document, is the practical way in which all of the initiatives can be implemented through the Seville platform for action. This platform already contains more than 130 initiatives that have been presented over the last few days, with 37 countries involved, 7 multinational banks, the private sector, civil society have all been involved as well. This is real momentum to allow us to make headway on all of these issues. And this reflects the importance of bringing all these initiatives together in this platform.
Because when we say that time is now, I think we have to link it directly to the fact that we need practical, implementable solutions, as you said. Solutions because I think we can all agree on the diagnosis. Challenges are mounting. We can talk about investment needs on different fronts, including, of course, climate change going forward. But at the same time that those challenges are mounting, we have the financing which is dropping, which is being reduced or cut down. For example, global official development is expected to drop by 17% in 2025. And at the same time, spending interests are also increasing. Actually, they've been multiplied by 4 over the past 10 years. So these all pictures out a clear image, a clear diagnosis that really relates to the fact that we need to act, otherwise it might be too late. From our side, from the side of the Spanish government, as I said before, we wanted Sevilla to be something more than just another conference. We wanted Sevilla to be about action, about the possibility to really translate those words into specific and concrete initiatives that are there to increase available financing and to provide debt relief where it's needed. As Amina said, as the Vice Secretary General said, or Deputy Secretary General, we have the Sevilla platform for action, where we instill specific initiatives along those lines. I'm particularly proud about the Debt Pose Close Alliance, which is there to bolster the use of an instrument that actually is there to waive debt payments for countries suffering from extraordinary events such as natural disasters, health crises, or also food crises. And also alongside the World Bank, another, I think, important initiative, as you mentioned, is the Global Hub for Debt Swaps, which in the end aims at increasing the use of those programs to bolster investment in health, climate change, and other sustainable goals. We do not want to default on development, and the Global Hub for Debt Swaps is there to provide for an alternative. Also, and if I may just point out to another great deliverable of this conference, I would talk about the Borrowers Club, the Sevilla Forum on that, because I think changes, institutional changes, are those that ultimately are the ones that last for longer, and the ones that really provide for a change. And in this case, really raising the voice of the vulnerable, of debtor countries, of borrowers, and putting them in equal terms with the creditors actually allows them to, through that voice, also be part of the change that is to come. So it's a key development that we get out of this conference. And just to finalize, my main message is to really say it once again. We want Sevilla to represent hope, but represent hope through change, through implementable change, and we will be also following up very closely the implementation of all the initiatives together with the UN to be able to make the utmost of this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The floor is now open for questions. Questions from the press. Please raise your hand and identify yourself and wait for the microphone. We'll start here in front.
Thank you. This is David Latona for Reuters, and I have questions for both of you. So first for the Deputy Secretary General. I couldn't help but notice that at the start you said that 50 heads of state and government have been in attendance. I know that last week the talk was of 70, and I think it's fair to say that attendance has been a bit lackluster, if I may. Do you think that this is just unfortunate optics, or does it reflect a broader disengagement in the international community that needs to be reverted? And also, if I may, one more. How realistic are the outcomes when there are these cuts that you've mentioned, the projected cuts in ODA and in concessional lending and bilateral lending? Where does the money come from? Thank you. And for Minister Cuerpo, Spain has been championing the proposal of the Jubilee Fund with $100 billion in untapped SDRs. I was wondering if you have been able to sound out other countries these past few days to see if they're willing to join or interested in joining. Gracias.
Great, thank you very much. Well, I mean, yes, the leaders will always commit to come, and in many cases there'll be good reason why they don't turn up at the end. I think what was important to see is that their delegations did, and they came at a very high level, and that's why we were able to have meaningful discussions and conversations with all stakeholders. And so I do wish that we had seen more leaders from our donor countries. We didn't. But that's not to say that we will not get them in the room as we continue in the outcomes that we will follow up from here. They will be there, and we will continue to engage. So I remain hopeful. On the cuts, I mean, we're facing them deeply, so in the United Nations. But, you know, we've also got a response to that, to continue to engage, to make the case. Because this is about people. It's not about the United Nations. It's about the people we serve, and therefore the partners that we have. And the money, I think we have spoken about through the commitments. You have seen where resources can come back. I mean, there are cuts in public, but there's innovative financing. There's the private sector. There's the triple lending of MDBs, SDRs to MDBs that can also leverage 6-7 times. So, I mean, the resources are there. We just have to have the political will to leverage through these mechanisms that have come out of the platform of action and continue moving with them, and be very specific to countries that are dealing with these issues. It's not a broad brushstroke. It is to go out after the countries that need that support and provide the technical assistance that's often needed to connect them with those resources and the mechanisms that are being put at our disposal.
Yes, on your second question, it's true that we've always said that we need to be ambitious and that the initiatives within the platform might be a stepping stone towards even more ambitious initiatives. One of them that we've been discussing throughout these days was the creation of this trust, of this fund for debt buybacks that could still open a bit more fiscal space for borrower countries. And these 100 million, they come from a very easy calibration, which would be if each and every advanced country did rechannel up to 50%, given their already existing pledges, that would free up to $100 billion in a matter of just a few weeks. So this is for us a key, an important, feasible, practical way to also unlock the necessary financing. We've been sounding, of course, countries. There have been a lot of discussion around these days with, I would say, very positive comments around this initiative. Also on the fact that it's technically feasible, and what it requires is basically, in the end, political will. And therefore, on our side, what we'll be doing is to push for this political will to become a reality.
Yes.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Good afternoon.
I want to ask you, despite the efforts of this summit, it's viable, the system, without the United States? Ministro, si me puede contestar esta pregunta.
Minister, I'd be grateful if you could reply in Spanish. And then for the Minister of the Economy, I have two more national questions. Bearing in mind the latest incidents linked to the high-speed trains, is the Spanish system ready for the incorporation of new operators, such as those who arrived in recent months, or does it require further investment? And I'd also like to ask you about a report from the BBVA Bank, which was issued today regarding the fact that young people are going to have to work until they're 71 before they retire. Is that situation reversible, and are you concerned about it? Thank you.
Well, the absence of the U.S. is always important that we underscore that it is unfortunate. They are a big player. They have provided financing and support over the years to sustainable development. And this sudden step back, we hope that they will find in it to come back through the door. But for the time being, we've got billions of people, and we have a number of countries who are moving forward on this. And that's what Sevilla has showed us, is that the show goes on because there is a need. And we don't stop still. We don't stop still on the hope that we have to generate. We don't stop still on all the innovation and the commitments that we can make, even if they're not in the room. I think that's important, and we will also look to new players, broadening that base of those that are able to come now to the table and do more, leveraging the private sector better than we've done before. And I think that these are the hopeful signs. And so while we regret, we also look forward to a time when they will come back.
Yes, on that first question, along the same lines as what the Deputy Secretary General was saying, of course, it is regrettable when you have a major absence like that of the United States in this case, and we do hope, as the Deputy Secretary General was saying, that the United States will nevertheless come on board this joint effort. But the message that Sevilla is sending, and again I agree with what the Deputy Secretary General said, is that the needs remain there, and we stand ready to respond to them and to try and meet them and to ensure that Seville sends that message of hope out to the world, because we do care. This is the message that we have been sending here, and I think this message also translates into a certain degree of relief from many countries who are hoping for that precise message from Seville. And regarding the two other questions, I have not had time to read the analysis concerning the job market, but I do think it's important to underscore the situation concerning employment in Spain, and especially with regard to young persons. What's been happening over the last few years is that the duration of training and studies for young people is getting longer, and this applies also to vocational training, and that's very important for their future careers and for the careers that the salaries they will be able to earn further on as well. So in a sense, we have seen a positive development for young people in recent years, to which you have to add the fact that there has been an improvement in job stability on the labour market, which means that it is more easy to plan for the long term. It's also easier for young people to avoid gaps in their professional lives, which is also a positive thing in terms of their own retirement. Compared to the period that preceded the financial crisis, the huge impact that the crisis had on employment and our young people means that what we've seen in recent years is the result of a set of public policies that were aimed precisely at fostering job creation and job stability on the job market and at reducing inequalities. For instance, we've increased the professional minimum wage, which has had a positive impact and which has had a positive impact on young people in particular. Also, in response to your second question and the need for investment in infrastructure in general, one of the consequences, or another of the consequences rather, of the financial crisis was the tremendous drop in public investment that we saw, and also the lack of investment in infrastructure, which for many years required a lot of effort so that we could then bring our infrastructure up to the level of the best infrastructure in the world. So that drop has been offset in recent years by a sharp increase, especially since the pre-COVID era, which is going in the right direction. We are trying to avoid the decapitalization of those vast investments that were made. We don't want to lose the benefits of what we invested in already. So an example I can give you is that we do want our high-speed trains to be among the best in the world. Thank you.
Yes, one more here. And please mention your name and media outlet.
Thank you. Giorgio Michalopoulos, Vox Europe. So, question for both of you. While there is a clear call towards institutional investors to engage with the SDGs, on the other side, billions are flowing towards the most polluting industries and also the fossil one, of course, often under the green investments claims. Do you think that this conference will boost a change in that direction, directing more investments and private capital towards truly impactful activities? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, this is part of a conversation that will take us to COP30. There is, of course, the commitment to have NDCs that are sector-wide. That includes the transitions from brown to green. What we have seen is, yes, that we do see an increase in fossil fuels, but we also see an even bigger increase in renewables, 400% in solar. Of course, it's not where it all should be, and many efforts to try to invest in that. And in Africa, you have the African Development Bank and the World Bank with investments in trying to connect 300 million people over the next few years. So we are concerned. The mitigation issues are not yet over, and we continue to see the need to look at, I would say, the top 35 countries that are producing 85% of those emissions, so we will work with them on the NDCs. But there is a movement on the transition to green, to blue economies, and we have seen much more investments come into that for the SDGs. And when we see the sector-wide responses, look at the food systems, look at the energy transitions, look at digital connectivity, these are all places in adaptation that we need to invest in if we're to address the climate agenda.
Yes, if I may add, because I actually completely agree with what you just said, I was going to first, of course, talk about the link between the different conferences that are taking place this year. Of course, G20 and the South African leadership, Sevilla and financing for development, but also ultimately Belém, Brazil, and the COP. everything is one and the same discussion in the end. It's impossible to separate and to have niche discussion on these important issues. And my second point is that there is, I think, an alignment in terms of incentives towards also promoting green investments or greener investments, in the sense that many countries are understanding that renewables are a source for also cost competitiveness and strategic autonomy or independence from fossil fuels. And in this sense, I think that actually squares the circle in terms of really putting the stress on increasing the financing for those investments.
Thank you very much. This concludes our briefing. The closing plenary is starting now. So thank you all very much for coming. Thanks to our speakers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.